Hi and welcome to the course. Retrofit is the most amazing library for Android that seamlessly handles all the HTTP requests and responses. Retrofit is a great choice as HTTP client for taking your Android application to the next level and connect your application to the remote world. Well, usually when we start our journey as an Android developer, we learn what are views and how to design layouts, what are activities and fragments, how to handle events within our application. But after a certain level of time, we realize to take our application to the next level. So when it comes to connect our application to the world, we sometimes feel helpless as a beginner. We start to ask, well, how to do it, what it takes to get your app online, and most importantly, where to start from. Well, let's find out. To understand it better, let us get a big picture of what is client, web service, HTTP, and of course, how Retrofit fits among all of these. Well, to get your app online, first you need a client. So your Android device is basically a client. Now a client can be your website as well, even your iOS device. To get your application online, you need to connect it to the web server, which will contain the web services. In between client and web server, there is some sort of communication that goes on. For example, from the client, we pass the HTTP request to our server. In response, the web server sends back the HTTP response, which is then received by our client. Pretty simple, isn't it? Now you might ask, what is the role of Retrofit here? Well, handling this HTTP request and HTTP response is quite painful. To make our life easier, we have Retrofit into picture. So Retrofit comes in between here, these two. So what happens is that our client, that is our application, tells Retrofit to send a request to the server. And the server sends back response, which is consumed by first Retrofit. Then Retrofit converts the response in the useful data, which is then used by our application. So the role of Retrofit is to make our life easier by handling these complex request and response communication data. So let us understand it with the help of the Facebook application. Whenever we open our application, we try to refresh our feed. Once you do it, your Facebook application sends a HTTP request to the Facebook web server. And the server then again sends back the HTTP response so that you can see the new stories in your feed. So are you in right place? Let's find it out. Now in this course, we will of course create the Android application for the Android client. We will learn Retrofit from scratch, handle HTTP request and response with the help of Retrofit. Now what about this web server, which will contain web services? Well, if you have no idea about what is a web server and what is a web service, then please don't worry about it. We will set up our local web server and write our own web services from scratch. So for this course, you don't need any knowledge about what is a web service and how to create it. Well, in this course, you will create a application from scratch known as Globofly, the glimpse of which you already saw in the previous video, in the course overview. And while creating this application, you will go through several concepts in this course. You will understand what exactly I mean by HTTP. How does it look like in terms of HTTP response and request? Then we will see how to create your own web services and run it in your local web server. And of course, we will use Retrofit to get your application online. So from the next video, let's begin.